Hello everyone. Today's topic is welfare economics. Hope you all are doing very well. Welfare economics, as we all know, is the study of how the allocation of resources and goods affect social welfare. And so it directly relates to the study of economic efficiency and income distribution mainly, and how this economic efficiency and income distribution affect the overall well-being of people in the economy. Simple as that. So we'll start. I've tried to cover a few more things in this topic related. They are interrelated in fact. So let us go ahead. This is the way how we are going to cover this topic. So let's start with the introduction. What is welfare economics? Like I slightly introduced a bit earlier also, that's a branch of economics and it uses microeconomics techniques to determine the allocative efficiency within the economy and the income distribution associated with that. It analyzes the different states in which markets or economy can be in real, how it can sustain, taking these two main aspects in view. Its main objective is to find an indicator or certain measure for the purpose of guarantee that markets are behaving optimally, and also not only this much, along with this optimal functioning of markets, consumer welfare should be as high as possible, meaning to say both the producer and the consumer are working efficiently or attaining their satisfaction at the highest level. So here we are going to learn about this. We'll talk a little about these contributors because they propounded very well-known work based on this topic. So the name of A.C. Pihu is very well known, who was a British economist and was a disciple of Mr. Alfred Marshall, whom we know very well, is a very well known name in the field of economics. And so he succeeded his mentor as a professor at Cambridge. Pihu is remembered above all as a precursor of welfare economics, and he talked about this topic or aspect in his books like Wealth and Welfare, published in 1912, and The Economics of Welfare, published in 1920. Here he used measurement of national income and its distribution so as to understand how wealth and welfare are interrelated. Meaning to say, he mainly focused upon the distribution of national income, the various components, and how the welfare of a common man depends upon this part or distribution aspect of national income. He also is remembered for making a distinction between different degrees of price discrimination. It's a separate topic, and it's a very interesting topic that comes under the theory of price discrimination, and that we'll be definitely dealing in a individual separate lecture. Further, the name of Mr. Vilfredo Pareto also comes, and because his Pareto optimality concept is very famous under welfare economics. He was an economist and also a sociologist of Italian origin, who was born in Paris and who taught at the University of Lausanne. Just like his mentor, Mr. Leon Walras, who is again a very well known in the field of welfare economics, who talked about general welfare and so on. They both were part of Lausanne School, which is considered along with the Austrian school as the birthplace of marginalism and neoclassical economics. So this is a very brief introduction about two dignitaries who contributed a lot in the field of welfare economics. Now we'll start with the concepts. The very first concept is production possibility curve, which is PPC, which is also known as PPC. In short form, it's known as PPC. And this curve is a kind of a graph that shows all the different combination of output that can be produced given the available current resources and technology. Sometimes this is also known as production possibility frontier, which is PPF. So you can see this graph here is the PPC, and each point on this production possibility curve is said to be the Pareto efficient point. How and why, that we'll understand further. So let us pick the very first part here. This PPC and the marginal rate of technical substitution, which is MRTS. Now what is this MRTS? We have a complete separate lecture on this topic, MRTS. You can just scroll down on my YouTube channel. You will find this topic separately. So this MRTS, in short, if I say it, illustrates the rate at which one factor must be decreased so that the same level of productivity can be maintained when another factor is increased. If there is a constraint and the quantities are limited, fixed, then how we can maintain the same level of productivity by increasing one factor of production and decreasing another. For example, if there are only two goods, X and Y, and two factors of production, labor and capital, rest all is being assumed to be constant, then here you can see these 4 points, they are showing the different level of marginal rate of technical substitution, and here they both the marginal rate of technical substitution of labor to capital and capital to labor are being assumed to be constant when the two goods are being produced, X and Y, using the two factors of production, labor and capital. So here along with this curve, they all are the production capacity is equal, and so this is known as the PPC curve. We'll understand further in detail of this whole mechanism, how it works and why. Now another part. This is the PPC and marginal rate of product transformation, which is MRPT in short. See here, what is the slope of this PPC? As we all know that we have already assumed there are only two goods, X and Y. So the slope of PPC shows nothing else but the change in Y with reference to change in X. Meaning to say how many units of Y that will have to be given in order to produce one more unit of X. That is change in change in Y to change in X. This is the marginal rate of product transformation, or also is known as the slope of PPC, or MRS is also another name given to this, which is marginal rate of substitution. Now we'll talk about general equilibrium. We have understood a little bit what is MRPT and what is slope or MRS. There is a little correction here. Like I said, we'll go back to the earlier slide. Like I said here, this is MRPT is also known as MRS. It's not MRS, but it is, in short, it is MRT, or marginal rate of transformation. because when we talk about marginal rate of substitution, we need to talk about the price aspect. So that is a kind of ratio between the price of the two, but here is the quantity or the units of x and y. So it is the marginal rate of product. That's why it's known as marginal rate of product transformation. When we'll be talking about the marginal rate of substitution, we'll talk about the price of x and price of y. So here MRPT is also known as MRT. Now we'll move again. Yeah, so here the basic assumption is that in equilibrium, firm will produce at the point on the PPC at the point where this MRPT, which is the marginal rate of product transformation, meaning to say the change in like we understood in the previous slide, has to be equal to the ratio between the price of the two goods. Meaning to say the change in the unit of two goods has to be equal to the change in the change in the unit or the quantity of ratio of the change of the quantity of two goods has to be equal to the ratio among the prices of two goods. So here this is the basic assumption that on this point, when the quantity is equal and the ratio of the quantities are equal to the ratio of the prices, at this particular point when they are equal, at this point the firm will produce. Now what happens when this MRPT is less than this ratio of the prices between the two goods? At this situation, there will be more of the production of X and lesser will be the production of Y. Just inverse to that, when this MRPT is greater than this ratio, and in this situation there will be lesser production of X and more production of Y. Meaning to say, like MRS, which is nothing else but the ratio of the prices between the two goods X and Y, has to be equal to MRPT. I'm sorry, we'll go back. So that way, this way, according to the initial assumption, MRS of X to Y has to be equal to MRPT of X to Y. So this is the situation, ideal situation at which firms will produce in equilibrium. Further, this the diagrammatic explanation of the same thing we are talking about. This is the slope of this, showing this the tangency between the price line and the PPC. This is the point of tangency between the two. So at this particular point where this price line is being tangent over the PPC, this will be the point of equilibrium, because at this point the slope will be equal to the ratio between the two. That is, slope of PPF will be equal to Px upon Py, which is nothing else but the MRS. Meaning to say, here the MRPT will be equal to MRX, marginal rate of substitution. So this is the ideal situation that we just talked about in the last slide. This is a diagrammatic representation of the same, where X and Y are the two goods, and X is represented on X axis, whereas the Y is represented on Y axis. Now under this situation of equilibrium, if we draw a tangent to the X axis, this is the quantity of X that is being produced in this ideal situation or the point of equilibrium, and simultaneously this is the quantity of Y which is being produced here if we draw a tangent from the point of equilibrium to the Y axis. If we join the 2 points here, this forms a box here, this rectangular box if there are two individuals here, individual A and individual B, as we all know that MRS is the ratio between the price of the two goods being produced. So here is the point of equilibrium where this tendency is occurring, and this is this whole thing is being the feasible region here shows the general equilibrium among the two in the society, where we are assuming that there are only two individuals, individual A and individual B. So this is the optimum level of the production or the quantity of good X and good Y, given that the price of X is Px and price of Y is Py. So here, since we have taken two individual A and B, here this again this has been showing with the help of the indifference curves between the two, or kind of Edgeworth box is being shown here where the two preferences are being shown. So at this here they are being trying to show the UA is the utility of A and UB is the utility of individual B, and these two curves are being tangent at this point, which is a parallel line showing to the point of tangency here. So they are trying to show here kind of tangency between the two individual indifference curves, showing the utility of two individuals A and B. So there are basically three conditions of general equilibrium that are being shown here, summarized in this form. If there are two individuals A and B, there are two goods X and Y, then the marginal rate of substitution of A for X and Y has to be equal to the marginal rate of substitution of B for X and Y, which is equal to the ratio of the prices of X is to Y. Or we can say the marginal rate of technical substitution of X, when we talk about since this is in the terms of the consumer, the second is in terms of the producer. So here X and Y, as we know, are the goods, and L and K are the labor and capital, that is a factor of production. So here again this equality has been established in terms of the factors of production, which is equal to the price of labor to the price of capital, and price of labor is nothing else but W, which is wages, and price of capital is nothing else or the remuneration for capital is nothing else but R, which is the rate of interest. And similarly, like we established earlier, that it has to be MRPT, which is the marginal rate of product transformation of X for Y, has to be equal to the ratio between the prices of the two, which has to be equal to the MRS of X and Y. So meaning to say that the production aspect has to be equal the replacement aspect or the transformation aspect of the production part has to be equal to the replacement or the substitution part of the consumption end, which has to be equal to the price aspect, and then this whole situation of equilibrium will be met. Or we can say meeting these three requirements, if these three conditions are fulfilled, then we can say as according to this theory of general equilibrium, the stage of general equilibrium can be established. Now there is a concept known as Pareto efficiency, which is also known as the cornerstone of welfare economics. So there are two aspects here, two concepts here. First is Pareto efficiency, which is said to occur, It's a concept when it is impossible to make one party better off without making someone worse off. Whereas a Pareto improvement is a situation that's said to have occur when at least one individual becomes better off without anyone becoming worse off. So this is a kind of situation that has been assumed how it works, and this is a kind of ultimate that situation when it has been attained following this rule, that one individual here is better off without anyone becoming worse off. So this is this situation is the improvement, Pareto improvement situation. So Pareto efficiency will occur on PPF, or production possibility frontier, or PPC, that we have understood earlier, when an economy is operating on a simple production possibility frontier. For example, here you can see there are 3 points, A, B and C. These points are on the PPC, production possibility curve, or the production possibility frontier, and all these 3 points are said to be Pareto efficient points. Why? Because it is not possible, it will not be possible to increase the output of goods without reducing the output of services. When an economy is operating on a simple production possibility frontier, it will not be possible to increase output of goods. Goods is being taken on y-axis and services is on x-axis. However, if we compare the situation of these 3 with this point D here, at this point it is quite possible to increase either without leading to a decline in the output of the other. So that is why it is known as Pareto inefficient situation or point, because here it is possible to increase both without leading to a decline in the output of the other. So here if we move, both can be increased simultaneously. Thus to be at point D would be known as Pareto inefficient point, and this is generally considered to be a not favorable situation for an economy. But at these are known as efficient points because here we are getting, there is this ideal situation where equal satisfaction is being derived out of the two things, which is goods and services, and so there is not a possibility of change, and so there is a kind of indifference among these 3 points and known as the Pareto efficient points. Further, Pareto efficiency is related to the concept of product or productive efficiency, and this productive efficiency is concerned with the optimal production of goods which occurs at the lowest point on the short run average cost curve and occurs on a PPF. I have taken these short run average cost curves just to explain, just to recall a bit that what is a kind of shape they attain with time. So as you can say, they are moving upwards. So at the lowest point of this short run average cost curve will be the point which is known as the optimal production of goods, because there at that particular point there will be minimum of cost, and so that is the point consider here efficient here, and be at that is the point that is being compared here and shown here as the Pareto efficient point. It is also concerned with the allocative efficiency. It is not just the optimal production of goods, it is also concerned with the allocative efficiency, as we are able to understand now that it is being considering both the aspect, the production and the consumption aspect also. So once we have attained the optimal production of goods, that is the efficient efficient utilization of resources at the producing maximum under the minimum cost efficiently. The second aspect needs to be dealt here is the allocation part, and so this Pareto efficiency is also considered with that part. So in the second condition, to be Pareto efficient, the distribution of resources need to be at a point where it is impossible to make someone better off without making someone worse off, meaning to say that has to be the best point of the distribution, that no further change is possible after that without making someone worse off. And so that is why it is not possible to produce at a point beyond PPF, beyond, if the moment you goes beyond this ppf, it becomes the inefficient situation, because the whole balance will be disturbed and the initial condition will not be met. So these are the two aspects that need to be attained for a Pareto efficient situation. There is another concept called Edgeworth box. This Edgeworth box is nothing else but a graphical representation of a market where there are two commodities X and Y, two consumers. This is just the basic assumption, and the dimension of the boxes are two quantities, showing two quantities of X and Y of the two goods. Now what is the main utility here? The first is it aims at the if there are two individuals X and A and Y, A and B, then it looks at the world from the individual A's perspective, and here the perspective of individual B is also considered, and further combining the both of the perspectives here, and when we combine both the perspectives here, it forms an Edgeworth box. Okay, we need to go back. Alright. So when we combine both the aspects, both the perspective of individual individual A and B, it forms the Edgeworth box. Each point within the box represent a particular allocation of two products between the two individuals. The products are X and Y, individuals are A and B. Their preferences are being shown here with the help of these two curves, two curves here and two curves here, and they are being combined here to form the Edgeworth box. Further, what is the utility? Now if we see this Edgeworth box is the main utility here is to compare the point both efficient and inefficiently, Pareto optimum or not. So here this point alpha and this point beta both are considered to be Pareto inefficient allocations. Why they are allocation? Because here the two curves are getting tangent to each other, kind of cutting each other sorry, because there exist changes in the allocations here. There is a possible allocation and none of the individual is at the highest point of indifference curve. As we have already read the theory of indifference curve, that the highest point there is considered to be the point of highest maximum satisfaction. So here these two are both are considered to be inefficient allocations. Now what are the Pareto efficient allocation that way? It is a situation when each individual is on the highest possible indifference curve given the indifference curve of the other individual, meaning to say at the highest level of satisfaction. Now this situation has been explained here. At this point, this particular parameter, I'm not sure, but I think it's gamma. Kindly excuse me if I'm naming it incorrectly. So at this point you can see this is the highest possible point of highest, this is the highest possible point on an indifference curve. This is the indifference curve of individual A, and this pink one is the individual curve of individual B, and at this point of tangency, this is the point which is the point of the efficient allocation, at which these two indifference curves are tangent to each other. And for both the indifference curve, this is the highest possible point on the respective individual curves, and at this particular point they are tangent to each other. So this is the point where both are getting highest satisfaction also. and there's a kind of equality and equilibrium being established. So this is the point of the efficient allocation. Similarly, 3 points are being shown here with the help of 3 parameters, different parameters. These 3 are showing the 3 different Pareto efficient allocations. From this only comes the next concept, which is the concept of contract curve. When these 3 points are being joined with the help of a line or a curve, then that curve is known as contract curve, with the 2 basic underlying assumption that there are 2 individuals A and B and 2 goods are being produced, X and Y. So at this contract curve, at each point of on this contract curve, the marginal rate of substitution, or MRS, for A and B will be equal. That is, the marginal rate of substitution for A will be equal to the marginal rate of substitution for B. See here, it has been shown diagrammatically. So this curve passing through the allocative efficient points, joining these 3 points, is the contract curve, which is joining these Pareto efficient points. Further, which is the last part, it talks about the fundamental theorem of welfare economics. So we'll be dealing with the first 2 fundamental theorems here. So the first fundamental theorem, which is also known as the invisible hand theorem, it says that any competitive equilibrium leads to a Pareto efficient allocation of resources. The main idea is that markets lead to social optimum, meaning to say that there is a kind of self-sustained system, and so no intervention of government is required, and so they kind of favor the laissez-faire policy, where there has to be no government interference, and the social optimum will be realized itself under the market working or the mechanism. However, those who support government intervention discarded this theorem, and they kind of found this unrealistically not applicable. It is the applicability part in real life was questioned. Also, it must be noted that a situation where someone holds every good and the rest of population holds none is a kind of Pareto efficient distribution as per this theorem. However, this situation can hardly be considered as perfect under any welfare definition, because it talks about the concentration of the welfare in few hands, and rest, the whole society, will be deprived of resources. So that situation can never be considered a situation of a welfare for the entire society or general welfare. But this fundamental theorem is said to capture the logic of Adam Smith's invisible hand, where they believe that there is no government intervention is required, and everything is self-sustained, and the economy can attain equilibrium on its own. Though in general there is no reason to suppose that best Pareto efficient point, of which there are a set, will be selected by the market without intervention, only that some such point will be. This theorem continues here. So, or in other words, in short, we can say what this theorem talked about is, where there is a perfectly competitive equilibrium, the allocation of resources will be Pareto optimal, meeting this situation where this MRTP will be the summation of the marginal rate of substitution of A and the marginal rate of substitution of B. So this is the basic underlying equation here that they tried to establish under the first fundamental theorem of general welfare. Now, what the second fundamental theorem emphasized is that any efficient allocation can be attained by a competitive equilibrium. They talked about the competitive equilibrium situation where everyone can get an equal opportunity to play, work and attain, given the market mechanism leading to a redistribution. So this is the aspect they focused upon. This theorem is important also because it allows for a separation of efficiency and distribution matters. Those supporting government intervention will ask for wealth distribution policies also, because they do support the government intervention here. So they also believe that people can ask for welfare policies, whether it's a wealth distribution policy. And so it's suggested that any Pareto efficient outcome can be supported as a competitive market equilibrium. And they talked about perfect competition here. Any Pareto optimal allocation of resources that is logically feasible can be arrived at via competitive markets, provided that the economy's initial endowments of resources can be redistributed in an appropriate fashion. So they mainly talked about competitive environment, competitive market situation, only when there is a fair redistribution of resources. Any of the Pareto efficient points are in principle attainable by the economy. All we need to do is to redistribute endowments in an appropriate fashion. What appropriate fashion means here is a non-distortionary fashion unrelated to any agent's market activities. So in the first fundamental theorem, we see that they talk about an optimum level that can be attained itself without any intervention, without any competitive situation, without any redistribution, thinkable aspect, whereas the second fundamental theorem completely focused upon the competitive market situation and the proper honest redistribution endowments. So this was these two were the basic fundamental theorems explaining how Pareto of efficient situation can be obtained and through which general equilibrium can be attained. In simple words, the first fundamental theorem of welfare economics says that if all markets are perfectly competitive, the allocation of resources will be Pareto efficient. No government intervention is required here. Whereas the second fundamental theorem says that any Pareto efficient allocation can be obtained as an outcome of competitive market processes, provided that the economy's initial endowments of resources can be redistributed via lump sum taxes and subsidies among agents. So this is the basic difference. They both talk about the Pareto efficient situations through which general equilibrium can be attained, but in a slightly different manner. These are the few resources that I've tried and referred to. Thanks for watching and hope you keep learning and growing. And also you can add the selected topics you want the lectures to be comprised on. You can write that in the comment box. I wish you good luck. Bye bye. Thank you.